Hello, everyone. Welcome to Winthrop in the World. I'm Paul Baskin, and with us today is Diann Baylis. Diann is from Marblehead. You are an immigration attorney, and you are a candidate for the Governor's Council District 6, and that's on the ballot here in Winthrop. Well, District 6 is about 20 towns, some of Boston, some of Cambridge,
yep.
Winthrop, of course, and a bunch of towns kind of north of Boston, essentially. And I mean, just so people know who maybe don't know what the Governor's Council is, it's an eight-member body that kind of covers the whole state. One of the primary jobs of it is to approve judges, but it does other things too, which we will get into. You're running against the incumbent. His name is Terrence Kennedy. He's an attorney from Linfield. He's been on that council since a long time, since 2000.
16 years.
Yeah, 16 years. I just want to note that he was invited on the show and has not followed through on coming on. So we have Diann, and thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Yeah, great
Very
to have
happy
you.
to be here.
Yeah, I'm wondering so I gave a little bit of a description of the Governor's Council. Maybe you can tell me if I got it
Sure.
roughly right. And
Yeah,
maybe
no, you
describe-
did. They do other things. I mean, from, let's see, confirm the parole board.
The parole board, yeah, okay.
And, I mean, all
So-
the way to confirming justices of the peace.
Just the
So it's kind of a lot of...
On the parole board, I just want to be clear. So the parole board makes decisions about who gets out of jail early, but you don't do that. You confirm the
No,
people
we
who
only
get on the board that
confirm
does
them.
that.
Correct.
Right. So but I think most people would think of as confirming judges as the big part of the job.
Mostly, yeah, mostly.
Yeah. Okay. And is it a full-time job?
It's not. It's part-time. It is... they do one hearing a week at the State House, but of course, a lot of the job is going to be researching nominees and interviewing nominees and things like that.
Right. Okay. And maybe if you could just tell folks a little bit of your background and why you are running for this.
Great. So I have practiced family law in the past. I was actually a pro bono attorney for the Essex Probate Court in Salem for their Lawyer of the Day program, and I worked with a lot of women and children. And I have seen, some of the judges doing arbitrary decisions for them, and it affects their life, their safety. So I would love to be able to research and interview and vet these judges, the nominees. Also, I'm an immigration attorney now, and I actually work mostly with kids. And there's a special visa in the probate court that it's called Special Immigrant Juvenile Visa. And this special visa starts in the probate court because probate judges are supposed to be better with kids.
So and probate, just so people think of probate, that's the place
Family
you think
law,
of, wills and family disputes.
Wills, custody,
Right.
divorces, things
So what you're
like
saying
that.
is people probably know the probate court for that primarily, but it also has this other role
Yeah,
that you're concerned about.
And I'm glad you said that, because some of the judges, I bet, the new judges, have no idea that they're going to be dealing with immigrant kids. And I have had a few problems where, you bring these kids in, they come in unaccompanied, and they have to meet certain criteria for this particular visa, and they've been, very traumatized before this process. And hopefully this process, once you get the predicate in the probate court, they streamline through USCIS, file something called an I-360, and they will actually get to get an employment card and get deferred action, which is supposed to protect them from deportation, but right now that's been in the courts. But anyway, so it's important that they get this predicate in the probate court. But I have been in the probate court, and for example, recently I brought in Afghan kids. And I understand these judges are used to dealing with American kids, and they have certain requirements for documents. But, I would bring in like UN country conditions and affidavits to show the judges why these Afghan kids do not have the birth certificate, the death certificate of the parents, and things like that. And it's been difficult. Some have tended to want to just dismiss it, asking me to get more evidence. But the problem is these kids are vulnerable to deportation until they get this predicate in probate court. So besides my interest in vetting the new judges with all of my experience from family law, I really care about streamlining this visa and talking to these nominees and saying, well, you may not even know that you deal with immigrant kids, but it depends on the country they're from as for what required documents they're going to have. Let's talk about alternatives now and try to streamline this.
So I think one thing that won't surprise people is that immigration is a hot topic in this country. Another thing I think maybe is surprising in Massachusetts, at least, that you think that the judges in Massachusetts would be generally friendly to what you're talking about. And am I gathering from what you're saying that that's not really the case?
No, just in some cases, and I think it's more like it's kind of new, you know, because when we do this SIJ and you have a special immigrant juvenile visa, and you have, you know, kids from Guatemala or wherever, a lot of times they do have all these required documents. But now we're talking about, you know, I'm bringing in kids from Afghanistan, and you know what's going on over there. A big part of it is if they ever got these required documents, they're told to destroy them because the Taliban can trace them. So it's very unique circumstances. And I'm just saying that the judges, some of them tend to drag their feet because they want more evidence. And unfortunately, though, when that happens, these kids are vulnerable to deportation.
And what kind of numbers are we talking about? Is this like a huge number of children, or what's the ballpark roughly?
Yeah, no, it's a special immigrant visa, so it's not all immigrant children. You know, most immigrant children will go through the normal process and go through the immigration judge. So it's a small amount, but it's just something that I have dealt with lately in this job, and I feel unnecessarily. I feel like we can just streamline the process, tell them at the start, you know, you're going to be dealing with this, let's go over alternative documents.
Right. So I'm not questioning your sort of strategy of getting on the Governor's Council to do this, but maybe if you could play that out a little bit in terms of why that's you see as the better way to kind of handle this problem.
Yeah, well, for that, I mean, there's many reasons I want to be on the Governor's Council because of all my work in family law, because I really want to make sure these judges are not only knowledgeable, but they have integrity, compassion, and I see that, especially in this situation, open-minded. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of the reasons I want to be on Governor's Council, but it's a very real reason for me right now, and I just really feel like, okay, I could really make a difference in streamlining this and helping these immigrant children.
Okay, so I tried to look up numbers before this, and I think I saw that roughly 50 judges a year get approved, somewhere in that order, and about maybe 20 of them are probate judges. Is that roughly the case?
Right.
So, well, I guess one question to ask is the incumbent. Is there something you're seeing that the incumbent is doing in these cases that you're saying, oh, I would do it differently, or is that not as much? Is this about the incumbent as much as something else?
No, this is about my interest in being on the Governor's Council and my expertise in immigration law, which I think is very important in this age because of all what's happening with the Trump administration, and also just in my experience in family law and dealing with judges and dealing with, especially through my pro bono work, dealing with a lot of women and children coming in for things like restraining orders and things like that, where you know they're afraid to use the system. They're afraid to see a judge. They, you know, it's like this program is a great program because it really does assist them and help them get to that point. But that shouldn't be the way it is.
Yeah. Okay. Can you talk about, as best you know, the process? Like, so if a judge is nominated, who nominates the judge? What's the process? How long does it take? What does the council do? That kind of thing.
Sure. The governor nominates, and then there's a special committee that helps with that nomination, and they do their own.
Special committee is not the Governor's Council; it's another committee.
It's another committee before, and they do a lot of the vetting. Okay. And then it comes to us, and well, to the Governor's Council, and they get the final vote on it.
Right. And can you maybe describe a little more in terms of the role of the Governor's Council in terms of do they interview the judge? Do they interview other candidates for judges? They look at a pile of paperwork?
Yeah, from what I understand, and I can't speak for the Governor's Councilors now, I'm not sure of their process, but you know, I understand that it does involve interviewing, which is so important, and researching, and finding out from other groups, you know, researching this person's past and find out, you know, if there have been any controversies or, you know, maybe to look at, how compassionate this person is, and to look at integrity, of course.
Right.
So as far as that, I know that I would put my effort, a whole effort, into doing this and doing a very good screening process.
Right. And do you have a sense as to how many of these nominees that get to the Governor's Council get rejected? Is it pretty much at,
Not a lot, from what I understand. And I mean, of course, I can't really comment on it because I haven't been on the Governor's Council.
Right.
But from what I've seen, a lot do get through. And I mean, and it's, I can't say how many, I don't know. But I know that, they get a lot of vetting at the beginning with the special, interviews.
Yeah.
And then they come to the Governor's Council. And, there's more vetting, which I think is very important because, this is important. You have these judges that are really going to be good to people and open-minded.
These are lifetime appointments too, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So your role, the Governor's Council role, if you get on it, is maybe analogous on the federal level to the U.S. Senate, essentially. So once you approve them, that's it, right? And we do see, when we look at judges on the federal level, a lot of the answers are, I can't decide, I can't answer that now because it would prejudice I mean, they're basically non-answers you get, and that the vote sort of goes along the political lines you expect anyway. Is that kind of roughly what happens on the state level as well?
Well, roughly. I mean, of course, personally, I would take each case, and look at it and, interview them, research it, and treat each nominee as a different person, no titles, or it doesn't matter what, if they're a prosecutor or what they've done in their life, and just interview the person.
Right. What about, I mean, I don't know how much it affects your role or your potential future role, but do you have a sense of the overall immigration situation in Massachusetts right now? We obviously, here in Winthrop, we've had some cases where people were taken off the street. We have a very large and growing Hispanic population in town. There's word of concern, not knowing what's going to happen. Do you sort of have an overall take of what's going on right now in Massachusetts, and particularly here in Winthrop, or at least in the general area, whether it's getting any better, any worse,
Unfortunately, I don't see it getting better,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And I'll have to say, in running for this, I've gone to all 20 communities. And there are some communities that I've gone into, being an immigration attorney, I understand, where ICE is and what they're doing. And unfortunately, I really am seeing that the enrollment for kids in these high schools and schools are down. I mean, I get it. I've had clients, they're afraid to go out. They're afraid to, that if they come home, their parents aren't going to be there. And that is really so sad for me to see. But I don't know if you heard about, the governor just signed the PROTECT Act.
Okay.
I think it was a week and a half ago.
You want to tell people what that's about?
Yeah, and it's pretty much to protect immigrants in certain areas, like schools and healthcare places and daycare and things like that. It's a wonderful thing, especially to an immigration attorney, because we deal with this every day, that we're so afraid that our clients are not, going to their doctor's appointments and the kids are not going to school. So that was, about a week and a half ago. And I did a little work on it in the past as well, and was very happy to see that pass. And I was at the signing, actually, with the governor. And it's enforcement, of course. It's enforcement. And we all have to be on the lookout that this is being enforced in any way that anybody can help.
So it won't surprise you to know that some of the people in this town and listeners will have a different opinion on immigration. They'll side more with the current administration in Washington, with the sort of sense that America for Americans kind of thing, and that these what's you know what I'm talking about. What would you say is your general answer to people who have that perspective?
My general answer is, personally, I mostly work with children. I've worked with all different kinds of visas and things like that, but all these immigrants are not criminals. These immigrants, they have families, they work hard, and there's reasons for them to be here. Like, look at the Haitians with the TPS.
So what you're
being
pointing out is the conditions in that country are pretty horrific, is what you're getting at.
in Haiti.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, in a lot of countries, but Haiti. you mentioned
yes,
Haiti, yeah.
yes. I've recently done a lot of asylum claims for Haiti, and there is no way that TPS should be taken away because everything's okay now. And I feel so badly, and I feel so badly for the economy, because think of all of these workers who have worked, especially in healthcare, are now eliminated from having an employment authorization unless they went on and tried to find a pathway to citizenship, for example, asylum. So that way, after you apply for asylum, you have 150 days, and then you can get an employment authorization document through that, and you can wait it out. So you have a path to citizenship, but the others, you know, they do not have employment
the others being-
authorization.
who are these
TPS holders that did not, that do not have a path to citizenship, that have not applied for something that.
And your perspective would be they should have a pathway to citizenship.
Only if they could, they're not all eligible for asylum. There are there's U visas, T visas, there's a bunch of other visas, but not all of them are eligible for all of these visas. And it's a tough, because, they're going back to a horrible situation, but with asylum, it's very specific on how the way, you suffered any abuse or your fear of going back. It has to be related, to specifics, and you have to prove that, if you move somewhere else in Haiti, then would you be able to do that? And it's a lot of specifics. So not every Haitian has an asylum claim.
So I'm getting back to the sort of the state judges. There's the case that I think people will recall, Judge Shelley Joseph. You know the case I'm talking about? There's a judge. It was a judge who, a master's judge who was let an immigrant out the back door of her court, essentially.
I don't know a lot about that, to tell you the truth, so I don't really have a lot to comment on that.
Okay, well, I'm just generally, I mean, does it feel like there's what's the degree of conflict that you can see, at least, between Massachusetts judges who may be representing one particular political point of view in the federal immigration system? That's where that case is an example of that kind of conflict. How difficult is that conflict right now? I mean, is it making it hard, as far as you can see, for judges to do their jobs in Massachusetts?
That's something I really don't want to comment on, because I think it really depends on the judge and who the client is in front of them. And that's something I've never dealt with, and that isn't something that really the Governor's Council would, that's something that would happen after they've been confirmed and after. But no, I really.
Well, I guess maybe wonder the degree to which that's a conversation that would come up with a prospective judge, is the degree to which you're willing to stand up. And this is the judge case I'm talking about, was a judge who, like I said, she had an immigrant case before, let the person go out the back door to avoid being arrested by ICE. And then herself was criminally charged.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the Governor's Council, I would be asking them questions that, obviously, what they would do legally, what they're supposed to do as a judge, what's part of being a judge, that I can't comment on. That isn't something the Governor's Council would do.
One other thing you may not be able to comment about, I'll try briefly at least, which is the question of, by being on the Governor's Council, you're going to be appointing a whole bunch of judges that, if you're an attorney, you're then going to be arguing cases before those judges. It seems like that could potentially create a conflict of interest.
I mean, the Governor's Council has been around for, almost 200 years, and they've always dealt with that issue. Lawyers specialize. And as you know, I do immigration, I've done family law. So I'm not a criminal lawyer, so I'm not going to have that situation all the time, if any. And if I do, I will recuse myself, because that has always been the practice of the Governor's Council in the past.
Do you agree with lifetime appointments for judges?
That's a tough one. I guess I would. That's a tough one. I haven't really, in my role right now, I haven't. But I think it's something that should be discussed. Because, I think some judges maybe should move on earlier than they have.
Is there even an age limit?
No, I don't know.
No, okay. And I mean, the reason it comes up is on the federal level, as you've seen, of course, in the case of the U.S. Supreme Court, there's a lot of concern that the political component has gotten really heavy there. Do you have a sense as to whether that sort of is going on at all on the state level?
Yeah, I don't actually, because I, like I said, I'm specialized in immigration law. I'm in the immigration court and in the probate court with my family law experience. So I really have not experienced that.
So if you could, I'm wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about the parts of the job that don't involve immigration and probate. And again, they're just regular judges, and then the other things that you went through them earlier, appointing parole board members, for instance. And maybe could you talk, Kyle, about the other aspects of the job and what you would bring to it in terms of
Sure.
of like
I
what you
mean,
do?
as far as appointing the parole board, I mean, I want to make sure, so I've stated probably a couple times today, that these judges are, open-minded and compassionate, have integrity, and in relation to the parole board, I want these members of the parole board to also maybe have some experience in working with people with mental illness or, who have had substance abuse or things like that, because I do believe in rehabilitation. I don't always believe in it. I come from a law enforcement background. My father was harbor master for 25 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, in Haverhill.
In Haverhill, okay.
Yeah.
And that's where you grew up, is that right?
That's where I
we didn't
grew
get
up.
to that, but that's where you grew up, but you're in Marblehead now.
Yeah,
Okay.
and my brother was a policeman. There's many a times that, there are comments over the dinner table and knowing how important safety is, and I get all that part, but I also get that, some people can be rehabilitated.
Right. There's cases that come up. I mean, I'm thinking even as far back as when Dukakis ran for president, there was the Willie Horton case, and the whole question that comes up every once in a while as to whether we're too permissive in Massachusetts, in particular. Do you have a sort of take on like whether we're getting the general mix right?
Yeah, I don't, because just in my practice, I haven't had to look into that. Personally, I think I've pretty much explained it to you. Safety is so important, but I really, really hope that we can focus on rehabilitation for some.
Okay. So the Governor's Council just warrants for the state treasury. What is that?
Yeah, it's just confirming.
It's confirming, yeah, so that's pretty, and then...
and we even do like justice of the peace.
Okay.
So it's not all like, parole board and judges.
So you decide who gets married in Massachusetts?
No.
No, that's not part of the job. Certification of statewide election results. Is that a big part of the job?
Well, it could be. I mean, right now, Massachusetts has always had fair elections, but we want to make sure that continues because, as I'm sure you know, we've had instances in the past in other states where there's been some, false allegations that maybe this election didn't go right. And but it's important that we continue having elections in due process and democracy. And again, in Massachusetts, we've always had that. And the Governor's Council's role is, to certify the election results, but I'll make sure every vote is counted. And hopefully, make sure that Massachusetts is always having a fair election process.
So I think we saw in the 2020 election, again, referring to the federal level, the job of certifying the election results was just supposed to be a fairly pro forma thing. That was at least the idea until what happened. But I mean, is that kind of again similar to what would be on the state level?
Yeah, it's. I mean, like I said, Massachusetts, we haven't had those problems really.
Yeah.
So far, it's just really we're the ones to certify the election results. And I've been involved in Democratic politics all my life. My first job out of college was with the Democratic State Committee, actually. And I've been very active in Democratic politics. And as a lawyer, very active in securing due process. And I believe in our democracy. And anything that I can do as part of the Governor's Council, I will do.
Right. So I maybe going backward on history, but I think you graduate from Merrimack College, is that right? And then Suffolk Law. So you have a JD?
Yes.
You do, okay, from Suffolk Law. And then you an actor is also?
Actually,
and a
it's funny, when my kids were young, I was home with them for a little while, and I thought it would be fun. I got in touch with Boston Casting and you send your pictures and information and a resume, and they'll put out castings for you. And it was fun. Sometimes I could do an all-night casting, and then I'd come back and switch off with my husband, and then he'd go to work, and so it was a lot of fun. But I'm on the list still, and sometimes I get one that I'm like, oh, this would be so much fun. So in the past, I've done, let's see, I did The Proposal with Sandra Bullock, and I got to meet Betty White. It was a very cold day.
Was that here?
It was at Beverly Airport.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen the movie, but they're supposedly supposed to be going to Alaska.
Okay.
And so Sandra Bullock was in front of me, and we'd have to get off the plane. And it was so cold and windy, but we weren't allowed to wear coats because it's supposed to be summer in Alaska.
Okay.
So there were heat lamps set up, and Sandra would look at me and say, okay, the last cut, where were we? And I would really try to remember, because it's so important that they, as you know, with this show, you've got to, make sure the editing shows up correctly. But Betty White came out in the cold and shook all our hands. It was pretty wonderful. But most recently, I actually got a casting for something called Widow's Bay, and it's on Apple. It still is on Apple.
Okay.
And it just looked like a lot of fun. It was supposed to be an island off of Massachusetts that's cursed, and sea hags are involved, and all that fun stuff. And I put in to try to do the beach scene in Gloucester, and I got it, and it was a lot of fun. And I actually did get on the trailer. Episode 3.
And a quick word about surfing.
Oh, surfing. I surf winter and summer.
So we see them here in Winthrop going on.
Yeah, and actually going around the district, I've talked to a lot of Winthrop people, and I think I'm going to start surfing in Winthrop as well.
Yeah,
I usually go to Nahant. Sometimes I'll go up to Rye, New Hampshire, to Rye Beach, but I've been doing it for years, and I have my very thick wetsuit for winter and my summer suit, but it's funny because I'm always cold, and I'm not the type that would go into cold water. So even, when my kids were young, I would say, well, let me put my wetsuit on before I jump in the pool with you, But it's just a passion. It's just, it's a great feeling to be out there sitting on a board.
Right. So, I mean, I guess I was going to joke that your acting career might cut into your governor's council work.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But I mean, but more seriously, like the time. I mean, is it? You're saying it's not a huge time commitment, so it feels quite manageable?
No, I'm not saying it's not a huge time commitment, and I guess it's what you want to put into it.
Yeah.
And I'm the type, I put my all into everything. So I'm sure it will be a huge time commitment for me.
Right.
But overall, it's as far as your duties, I know that you have that hearing once a week, and there's just a lot of behind the scenes researching and all of that.
Did you have to think long and hard about whether to do this, or was that a pretty easy decision?
I thought about it because I just feel I know as an attorney how important it is to have the right judges and how much effect they have on my clients. But I did have one incident. I think it was last year in probate court due to the special immigrant juvenile visa. And it was really hard. It was Afghan kids, and the sponsors were an aunt and uncle. The parents had passed away in Afghanistan. And it was just so difficult. I had, they were all stressed out. The sponsors were all stressed out. And, we had 3 hearings. They just kept dismissing it. And, and in the end, it was really sad. The judge, instead of reading all my affidavits and everything I collected from 3 hearings, said, we'll just do open testimony and have them testify to the death of their relatives. So that was a tough one.
How old are these children?
Well, the children didn't. The sponsors did.
The sponsors did. Okay.
So, but they were around.
Yeah.
It was tough, but it was kind of nice but when I walked out of there, I thought, these kids should not have to be put through all this stress. They're already traumatized. They've been through enough. And that's when you realize why you work where you're working, because this was so important to me. And I thought, how can I change this? And I thought, if I get on the governor's council, it won't be all of my job, but it will be some of it. And it was just great. I remember after that, the sponsors, they invited my husband and I to an authentic Afghan meal. And they had an apartment in Dorchester, and they, moved the furniture and put the beautiful rug down, and we sat on the floor and ate. And then at the end, the sponsors, aunt and uncle, couldn't speak fluent English, so they had one of the kids say to me that, you know, you are now my sister. You're always welcome in this home. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You know, you got to just, whatever job you're working in, you got to have a passion for it. And I think this is just continuing on with my passion as far as being on Governor's Council and hopefully making a difference in immigrant kids' lives.
Yeah. Well, thank Diann Baylis. Thank you very much, candidate for Governor's Council District 6 in the election, which is Tuesday, September 1st, and early voting is already underway.
It is.
Certainly in Winthrop, yeah.
Yep,
Thank you very much for the time.
Well, thank you. So
Thank
nice to
you.
meet you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.